I had Brule of the Lakota. Brule's a subtribe of the Lakota. And my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, had been at Chautauqua, and they had moved him from the reservation and sent him down there to live. And he was a storyteller, and he taught me a lot of things about storytelling, and I'll read a piece later that deals with how he saw what a story was. Then I was really blessed because my other grandfather, my paternal grandfather, the great gift he gave me is he was a reader. And he had books all over his house, and he would have me crawl up in his chair. He read me Carl Sandburg. He read Clarence Darrow. I may not have understood it altogether, but it didn't matter. It was the words and the rhythm. He read Shakespeare. He read Don Quixote to me when I was maybe 10. So actually, I was reading at a very early age, and I had lost my father, and so I was always with my grandparents in one way or another till they both died. And a lot of the stories that I've written have been a kind of looking for what fathers give. One of the things that I think is very important to me, I grew up at a time when every young man registered for the draft. That's just what you did. But in my particular group and in my friends, and very much an Indian thing too, you went down and joined the National Guard when you could, and that was 17. Gave you that extra year. So I did. Didn't have any idea of the fact that we were going to end up being called up. And so then got called up again later. But it isn't that matters so much. It's the fact that we were raised with a sense of obligation, duty, and that was drilled into us. And I couldn't have faced my grandparents. I couldn't have faced my father because my father was in the service when he died. My father is listed as one of the first casualties of the Second World War. So I would have, and my mother had served, so I wouldn't, I couldn't have faced them if I hadn't done that. Part of my writing life today is age and health and survival. And the interesting thing is I always joke with my students. I said, look, I've been to 2 wars and goat roping, and I've survived, and I intend to keep on surviving. I've got a condition which is sort of strange. It's neuron neuropathy, which means that the nerve endings are dying and fraying, and I can't walk anymore, particularly. And it's very interesting because I never thought, of all my life, I worried about, I'm going to be touching 80 soon, and I never thought, worried about my mental health, but I never thought that I would be a cripple. I was very much an athlete when I was young, and did all these things that I've written about. And now I'm having to reflect on what life is like when you're not acting, but I just refuse to give up about it. The joke is I'm John Hopkins' occupational therapy poster boy because I should have been in a wheelchair 3 years ago, and I have a rollator that I keep in the car, canes around the house. I'm just not going to quit. I work every day. I don't wait for inspiration. I sort of model myself after the Hemingway model. In fact, we have what we call the house gods, Hemingway being one of them, Ernie Pyle another one, and that sort of thing makes you sit down and work. If I'm writing something and I know it's just for an audience effect, I get real nervous. But I also get nervous as I discover that sometimes I write things and they turn out to be, did I say that? Did I really write that? Sometimes you can't fight with the combination of what you're doing and the vision of what you have. I want to read you a portion of an opening story from the Chugalug King. The story is called Chugalug King Goes Down the Road. Let me introduce myself. I'm John Jumping Bull. My grandfather was a storyteller. He was a hunk papa. But when I knew him, he had chosen to live with the Brule down on the Rosebud Reservation. He taught me that there was as many ways to tell stories as there are stories to tell. It's like skinning game, he'd say. You can start at the head or you can start at the tail. And then there are those stories like a spring that just come up out of the sandstone and you don't know where the water's been or where it's going. Grandfather said that a story is like a road, only he didn't use the word road. He used the Lakota word. That's the language of the Hunkapah and the Brule. I tell you this, not to bore you with personal history, but so you'll understand how hard it can be to tell a story when the story comes up like water out of the ground, and I didn't expect it or know for sure how it got there. The word my grandfather used for road meant path. I'd write it out for you, but it wouldn't make sense in English. The word meant more than path. It also means the way. But that's the journey men make in the great circle where everything ends up where it began. So a man has to learn to read the signs like broken twigs and bent grass and bits of hair left by the deer, for if he can't read the signs, he'll go hungry or not find water in the dry seasons. I'm always looking for signs which tell me how the story goes.